All right, guys. Hey, we just left, and all four kids, Peter, Susan, Lucy, and Edmund, had just hidden inside the wardrobe. Do you remember why? Do you remember Mrs. McCready was giving like a little tour around? And so they went from one place, they went to the next place, up and down all those hallways, and they finally said, let's just jump in the wardrobe. So that's where we left them. Let's see what happens. I wish the McCready would hurry up and take all these people away, said Susan. I'm getting horribly cramped. And what a filthy smell, said Edmund. I expect the pockets of these coats are full of mothballs. That's right, to keep away the moths. There's something sticking to my back, said Peter. And isn't it cold, said Susan. What do you think? Now that you mention it, it is cold, said Peter. And hang it all, it's wet too. Don't you love those English expressions? And hang it all. What's the matter with this place? I'm sitting on something wet. It's getting wetter every minute. He struggled to his feet. Let's get out, said Edmund. They've gone. Ooh, said Susan suddenly, and everyone asked her what was the matter. I'm sitting against a tree. And look, it's getting light over there. By Jove, you're right. Another favorite expression. By Jove. Start using that around the house. By Jove, Mother, that was a delightful dinner. All right, try that one out. By Jove, you're right, said Peter. And look there. And there. It's trees all around. And this wet stuff is snow. Why, I do believe what we've gotten into is Lucy's wood after all. And now there was no mistaking it, and all four children stood blinking in the daylight of a winter day. Oh, think how beautiful that was. Behind them were coats hanging on pegs. In front of them were snow-covered trees. Peter turned to Lucy at once. I apologize for not believing you, he said. I'm sorry. Will you? And he shook hands. Will you shake hands? Of course. Do you guys ever do that when you have done something wrong to your sister or brother? Instead of just saying, I'm sorry, would you ever say, would you shake hands? Only do that with your siblings right now, though. And now, said Susan, what do we do next? Do, said Peter. Why, we go and explore the woods, of course. Ugh, said Susan, stamping her feet. It's pretty cold. What about putting on some of these coats? Well, they're not ours, said Peter doubtfully. I'm sure nobody would mind, said Susan. It isn't as if we were taking them out of the house. We shan't be even taking them out of the wardrobe. I never thought of that, Sue, said Peter. Of course, now that you put it that way, I see. No one can say you've bagged a coat as long as you leave it in the wardrobe where you found it. And I suppose this whole country is in the wardrobe. They immediately carried out Susan's very sensible plan. The coats were rather too big for them, so they came down around their heels and looked more like royal robes than coats when they put them on. But they all felt a good deal warmer, and each thought the others looked better in their new get-ups and more suitable to the landscape. Do you ever put on dress-up clothes and feel pretty good? Feel like you're in royal robes? I like that they call it a get-up. We can pretend we are Arctic explorers, said Lucy. This is going to be exciting enough without pretending, said Peter, as he began leading the way forward into the forest. There were heavy, darkish clouds overhead, and it looked as if there might be more snow before night. I say, began Edmund presently. Now Edmund's a little nervous, right? Ought we be bearing a bit more to the left, that is, if we were aiming for the lamppost? He had forgotten, for a moment, that he must pretend never to have been in the wood before. The moment the words were out of his mouth, he realized he had given himself away. Everyone stopped. Everyone stared at him. And Peter whistled. So you really were here, he said. That time Lou said she met you in here and you made out that she was telling lies? There was dead silence. Well, of all the poisonous little beasts, said Peter, and shrugged his shoulders and said no more. There seemed indeed no way to say, and presently nothing more to say, and presently the four resumed their journey. But Edmund was saying to himself, I'll pay you all back for this, you pack of stuck-up, self-satisfied prigs. You know what? When you're in the wrong, should you be saying things like that? No, Edmund was definitely in the wrong. He had lied to Peter and Susan and made them think that Lucy was lying, and she wasn't, was she? We all knew. But Peter and Susan didn't know until they made it into the wardrobe, into Narnia. I think Lou ought to be the leader, said Peter. Goodness knows she deserves it. Where will you take us, Lou? Well, what about going to Mr. Tumnus's house? He's the very nice fawn I told you about. Everyone agreed to this, and off they went, walking briskly and stamping their feet. Lucy proved to be a good leader. At first she wondered whether she'd be able to find the way, but she recognized an odd-looking tree on one place and then a stump in another, and that brought them to where the ground began to become uneven and into a little valley, and at last to the very door of Mr. Tumnus's cave. But there was a terrible surprise awaiting them. Uh-oh. The door had been wrenched off its hinges and broken into bits. Inside the cave was dark and cold and had a damp feel and smell of a place that had not been lived in for several days. Now, that's not what it looked like before, was it? Do you remember when Mr. Tumnus took Lucy there? And it was warm, and there was photos hanging up, and there was a little table and a chair for him and a chair for her, and tea was served, and a little fire and teapot. Such a lovely place. It's not what they found. Snow had drifted in from the doorway and was heaped up on the floor, mixed with something black, which turned out to be charred sticks and ashes from the fire. Someone had apparently flung it about the room and then stamped it out. The crockery, it's like the porcelain or like a bowl or a crock that you might have in your kitchen, lay smashed on the floor, and the picture of the fawn's father had been slashed into shreds. This is a pretty good washout, said Edmund. Not much good coming here. What is this? Said Peter, stooping down. He had just noticed a piece of paper which had been nailed through the carpet to the floor. Is there anything written on it? Asked Susan. Yes, I think there is, answered Peter, but I can't read it in this light. Let's get outside into the open air. They all went out into the daylight and crowded around Peter as he read the following words. The former occupant of these premises, the Fawn Tumnus, is under arrest and waiting his trial on the charge of high treason against Her Imperial Majesty Jadis, Queen of Narnia, Empress of the Lone Islands, etc., etc. Also of comforting Her Majesty's enemies. Who is that, do you think? Harboring spies and fraternizing with humans. Signed Mogram, Captain of the Secret Police. Long live the Queen! Uh-oh. Mr. Tumnus is in big trouble, isn't he? I hope you come back tomorrow to find out what happened. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.